Hey guys, welcome back to Shapr3D. So today we're going to be working on a mask, and I'm not going to make exactly the same mask as this. I just use this as a template for our project that we're going to be working on right now. I'm going to discuss using the tools, the workflow, just to give you not only the opportunity to make a mask similar to this, but to help you understand how to think and design in 3D using Shapr. Because Shapr3D is a really powerful platform on the iPad, and I totally recommend it on the iPad over any PC, as long as you have an iPad Pro, just because so you can handle bigger projects. But let's just get right into it. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and hide this. No, hide it. Go to the front face, and typically when we're making a mask or a helmet, we don't work with circles because our head's not exactly round. We work with ovals or an ellipse, whatever you. Someone correct me on that. I don't know how to say it. Ellipse. There's two L's, so it's probably ellipse. But anyways, we make an oval. And let's see, 100 millimeters. Let's do 150. And I'm designing in a moving vehicle, so excuse me if there's extra movements or anything sporadic. But anyways, let's go ahead and we could have just adjusted the size by clicking that, but what I like to do is unselect it, then select it, so you get the arrow. So let's go ahead and make that a little bit wider, make it 100. So now we have our face shape. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to have a center line so that we can revolve our shape, because we need to get that 3D shape out of this sketch. Okay, so we need to revolve tool, and we now have this egg size, which we don't need the egg. We need only 180 degrees, which is half, and we want it on the other side, so we're going to make it negative 180. So we have our mask here. And so typically, when we work with objects, the simpler they are, the easier they are to shell. And shell is to basically make it empty, right? So what I want to do is to shell this mask from the back. Let's hide that sketch. Don't pay attention to all of these. That's for later. That's for the helmet tutorial, which is coming soon, but it turned out to be a bit more time consuming than I planned. But anyways, tools and shell, we're going to make it 6 millimeters, so we have a thick enough helmet that won't, well, not helmet, but face shield, face mask, so that it won't break too easily, right? And typically what we would sketch, we go to the front, right? But we're working on this edge here. What we need is a flat plane. So what we can do is either sketch on the back here, where we already have a sketch, but then we would kind of have to work, from backwards in a sense, or we can go ahead and move a sketch over to make a plane here that we can work on. Or the easiest method, I would say, is if you take the mask and just move it back, let's say 100 millimeters. Is that enough? Let's do 150. That's easy to remember. Probably too much. 120. All right, just remember that number, because let's say if you had a head here, a 3D scan of a head, and you were working on this mask and you moved it, you want to be able to move it back to the exact same position so that you can make sure everything fits. So let's go ahead and use that now as a plane for our sketch, and we're going to line that up to approximately where our eye is. Let's make this 50 millimeters. So eyes are slightly more roundish than an oval, right? So that's a good spot. So again, I'm just sort of replicating the other mask, so that way we can see the process. All right, so now we have that one eye hole for it, and now we're going to work on our lightning. And this is where the interesting stuff kind of happens, because there's multiple methods to do this, and a lot depends on what you're trying to do. So let's go ahead and shape our lightning. That's kind of ugly. Let me restart. It's okay to restart sometimes if the situation calls for it. All right. This is generic lightning, kind of like what you would draw when you were 5, but it still looks pretty cool. And so here's the thing I want to talk about here. Let's delete this sketch if we can. It's not letting us there, or what? No, that's just a center line. Okay. So anyways, what we could do is project this onto here, and we would have, you know, an extrudable piece that we can extrude a certain amount. But honestly, this is kind of hard to edit. So let's say we let go. Now what? You know, now it's kind of funky, you know, to edit this. Another option would be if we just simply selected the wrong piece. If we extrude this shape, let's say all the way through, we make it a new body. Okay. Then what we could do is replace the face here, but it'll make Shapr thing a little bit too long. So let's just subtract, you know, this thing from the mask. So we get that as a separate body. We don't need that. Delete it. And let's hide those sketches real quick. And so here now we have this weird way of working it, right? But we can do this. We can shell it on this face. Let's say we want it to be 4 millimeters, and it gets us a 4 millimeter thing. All right, but let's try if we select the whole thing and shell this. All right, it's a thinker, so we might want to do something else. Okay, I'm going to skip through this and operation field because it's a complex shape. That's what I said about the mask, to shell it ahead of time. So what we're going to try to do is select all of these sides instead of selecting the whole thing, and see if that works better for us. All right, and now let's do 2 millimeters. Let's do 4. Actually, that worked perfect. So now we have 4 millimeters. And this way we have more control, because remember, this is now a separate body. So long-term planning ahead, if you do it this way, it's much easier to edit versus if you just attach it to the body right away. And I suggest doing it this way just because later on when you decide, yes, this is the final piece, you can always just union the two together, right? And then you have one body. But let's undo that for now, just so we can have a better time working with it. All right, and then next thing I did is I selected the face sketch again, and I just did like this cool looking thing across. And let's go ahead and move that just a little bit so we're on separate planes from that. And then we have to kind of close that sketch so we can project this. This one we can technically project tools because it's a pretty simple shape. To this body. And you see it added those situations to us. But if we just hide that, we can always, at least in most cases, delete unnecessary lines. All right, let's go ahead and move that out by 4 millimeters now. And the difference being when you project versus when you do that is, look, see this edge right here versus this edge. That was a shelled one. So it depends on how you want to do it. So you have to keep that in mind when you're working, because you're going to have artifacts. But you can also always simply offset or chamfer, fillet, but keep in mind that there's a different way of doing things. So for example, this was 4 millimeters, right? Let's see if we do 4 millimeters. It gives us a pretty straight edge. And the cool thing about it is when you chamfer this edge, you can now chamfer it or fillet it a lot more, or at least fillet for sure. But as you can see, it blends in pretty nicely. And in this case, you can also blend this edge. And later, if you want to match these faces, you can do this. For example, watch, replace face. You select this one, replace the face, and you sort of matched it. So again, knowing these tricks, while it seems pretty crazy, separate object, right? Separate object, union object. Knowing these tricks really helps, because you can always adjust it as you go if you know what you're doing. So again, we want to replace the face here to make it just like that. We technically don't even need to do the 4. we could just do an edge, and then we replace the face with this one. And again, in most situations it works, but some doesn't, so you do have to just watch as you go. All right, and in this case, we want the lighting to be on top of this, so we're going to pick this 2 millimeters higher than that one. All right. Also, the benefit to having separate body parts is if you go into visualizations, you can change them, individually, versus if you go and you want to change the color of this, you have to select every edge. So this video is more about workflow than it is actually designing a mask. So I'm just showing you these little tricks that you can use to make your life easier long term once you know how to do this stuff. All right. So now we go and change it. Just select into, and just go through and make sure that every edge that you want changed is selected. Right? And it's already starting to come together, right? And then if we select this standard material, right? We select carbon fiber. Same thing here. So it's starting to look very interesting, right? We can also do stuff there, but I'm just showing you the process. The process is important because, like I said, this was easier to change materials. This one I had to select every face by itself. So keep that in mind when you're working. If you plan ahead and you separate things in the beginning, it's going to make your life so much easier because you can usually union everything in the end without issues, like 99% of the time. So I would suggest doing it that way. All right, and then for the final step, I'm going to go ahead and delete this sketch just because, to make things simpler, and this one as well. So we want to make our little twisty loop, and to make that work, we start with a circle, because remember, that's how you make those, I forgot what they're called, twists, whatever, we'll call it twists this time. But now we have our line, we trim one side. I could have just selected the line, but now we basically choose circle again, and we go one step lower, and we connect it there. And as you can see, we have our little twirl. And I guess I should have kept that center line after all. But here, trim. Sometimes if you miss, it'll get you out of there. But let's go ahead and continue now, approximately right there. And now we need to extend our line here so we can, right, we'll just draw a new one just to make it easier, make it bigger. We're gonna go ahead and, actually we'll stop here. Let's go ahead and just cut that off there. Let's trim the pieces we don't need. Actually keep that one there, because what we're going to do right now, we require a finished edge. Alright, so offset, you can offset anything that's selected, right, that's connected rather. Okay, it deselects it, so I'm assuming it's together. Alright, let's do 15. That should work better. Then we're going to close these sketches. Trim that piece. Then tools, project this and this onto this and this face. But as you can see, because these things are connected, we get these artifacts on different levels. So again, this is where extruding is the better option. Since it's a smaller piece, we can actually do this way. Look, tools, replace face from this side. That way you can see it's, actually, you know what? Let's hide the sketch. Let's think ahead and move it into the position that we want it in. already. So I wanted to just be over that little lightning thing. I think it was just because it was on the line there. Can't be replaced. All right, what about subtract? This will be fine for us because we already moved it into a position that we wanted. Now we just replace the face there. And since it's a separate object, we can do the visualizer thing. All right, and then we want to, we'll keep it actually like that for the moment. But what I don't like though is that you can see the blue through that just in those spots. So what I want to do is to hide the mask, then replace this face and this face with this face. And then what we're going to do is subtract from this thing, and now I need to hide it so I can change these colors. So I'm going to select this in 3D design mode instead of visualizer mode, just because doing this in the visualizer is a lot slower, because it takes a lot more of the computing power to make those decisions. So now we go to visualize, we change that to the translucent blue, go over here, reveal our body, change this to carbon fiber again. All right, and now this is the step where you go and you can round the edges, for example, because if you did this earlier, it will just make everything harder to edit. But once you're happy with the way things are, for example, I want to keep those square, but what if I want to keep these rounded? So if you do this in the latter end, let's do 4, get 3, because I want it only to go to the edge. I'll make it 2. Or if we want to absolutely make that perfect, let's Tools Union. And then do this. So as you can see now, it doesn't cut into the body as it did before. But it did, however, change our material. So again, we're going to select the bodies that changed. So I wanted everything to look like it was complete already. And again, as you can see me moving around, this is a big benefit to having this on an iPad. The movements are just super natural and very convenient versus how it is on the desktop, unless you have like a special touchscreen or something. So here's that, and then for this, let's see, I want this in the blue as well. I might as well make the rest now in carbon fiber. Let's go ahead and select that edge as well. And now we have our mask. So I know this is a pretty simple mask, nothing special. There's actually one I'm thinking of that is extremely complex and I'm still trying to figure out how to do, because there's a lot of interesting shapes. But this is a basic mask, and I showed you some workflow options. That's just an artifact of the design, I'm guessing. Or is this? Oh, that's because I didn't union the parts. I forgot you can union this, and then that'll go away. Just because sometimes there's artifacts showing through because of the intercepting body parts. But anyways, this is basically the process of how you would do it. And I showed you a couple tips and tricks along the way that you can learn and plan ahead, because if you design and you just do everything one way, it'll just be difficult later down the road. And usually the most important parts are done in the end, like the softening, the visualizing, you know. And if you make the body separate, it's just going to make your life so much easier. And as you can see, this is a mask and it will fit. You just need to add some place for straps, but you guys know how to do that already. So I'm just going to leave you here. Hope you guys learned something. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. And next is helmets. I know that's delayed, but I promised and I will make it happen, but just a slight delay. Hope you guys enjoyed this one as well. Bye-bye.
Here at Shapr3D, our goal is to inspire and empower you to create your own amazing projects. Please support our work so that we can keep doing it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to see more.